2nd of September 1945. World War II had just ended after 6 years of violence, fear, and genocide. One of the great wars that had affected nearly every country in the world was finally over. But what sort of lasting impact did the war have on Germany? How did the children of the new post-war Germany adjust to the grief and guilt attached to their identities as Germans? These are some of the many questions war immigrant Erika Kovacs had to deal with as a German refugee.
When we came to Australia on the ship, all the migrants were very sad that they were leaving Europe, and the Germans sang a song called Adieu du mein lieb Heimatland, which means goodbye my dear homeland. Adieu du mein lieb Heimatland, adieu. But it goes on, of course. And they were all crying. All the migrants were crying while they were singing it.
Erika Kovacs is a war immigrant from Czechoslovakia who migrated to Australia nearly 70 years ago. At 79, Erika still can recall many of her childhood memories vividly.
I was born in 1939 when the war started. We lived in a school. I was born in a school actually, because when we escaped from Hungary to Czechoslovakia, a school was arranged for my father to work like as a German teacher, which also had accommodation. I was only a child. In Austria, I was in boarding school, and it was the reason we were in boarding school is because my mother had tuberculosis. My mother couldn't look after us, and she had 5 children under about 10 or whatever, and so we were all put into a boarding school. The times were 1945 to 50 was a difficult time for. We were lucky because my father could speak French, and the French at that stage, Austria was with the French. So my father had a job with the French, and we got accommodation rather than being in the migrants' camps, which we were initially. So we were in the camp, not in the camp, in the accommodation that the French had because of my father's job.
Erika and her family migrated to Australia in 1950, 5 years after World War II had ended. Despite their seemingly easy voyage years after the threat of war had evaporated, the Kovacs were constantly fleeing from Russian invasion as they drifted from Czechoslovakia to Austria-Hungary, with the borders constantly changing in the early 1940s. In fact, when Erika's mother was 9 months pregnant with her, she had to protect herself, her husband, and her unborn baby from partisan attack.
Yes, that was in 1939 when we left what is now Ukraine, but then it was Hungary, and we went into Czechoslovakia, and there was a partisan. The partisans were killing all the Germans. We were ethnic Germans, so they would have killed us and killed my father. So he was about to shoot and kill my father, and my mother, 9 months pregnant with me, jumped in front of my father and said, started speaking to him in Russian. He spoke Russian, and so she was fluent in many languages. So anyway, she spoke to this partisan when he was about to shoot my father about the sanctity of motherhood and about his mother, the guy's mother. So the fellow put his gun down and went away.
Wow.
So it was very brave. My mother was a very brave woman, very strong, brave woman. My father was cowering behind her. But once we came on the ship to Australia, well, then in the camp we were with my mother. So again, we didn't have much family life with my father because we were separated, him doing contract work. Christmas was beautiful. You know, it was snow and we didn't have, you don't have Santa Claus, you have a Christkindl, which is Christ child, because he was born, Jesus was born on Christmas Eve, and that's when our big celebration is, not Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve at night. And but Santa Claus, St. Nicholas came on the 6th of December, and that was traditionally it started off St. Nicholas in Turkey. He was a man who really gave presents to all the children there, and that's where it was adopted then in other countries as St. Nicholas. But in Australia and English-speaking countries, it's they call him Santa Claus, and they say he comes at Christmas Eve. Well, it didn't come for us. It was 6th of December. He came and gave people, children, you know, fruit and nuts and things. Nothing, no presents. But Christmas time was different. Then it was, you know, for the children it was a big event, and they usually got presents, and it was a very nice time for children. Christmas, everyone